goal, Quishbilly Huddersfield Town! The most famous goal of Quishbilly's life.
Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is. Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town.
And Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the frame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted.
Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
It's the Eye of the Tiger, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the warm-up episode 44. The international break is over and club football is back. So let's sink our teeth into Huddersfield's match against Hull. Joining me, your host, Brady Frost, to preview the match against the Tigers, is a man who's sick of me clawing puns into this podcast. It's my co-host, Josh Phillips. Josh, how are you?
Hi, mate. Not bad, thanks. I was expecting a Squid Game intro, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. A lot of X's and O's, couldn't work it out, but I'm sure we'll see. That's not that good either, so there you go.
Josh, you and I can be Gambo.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
You seen it, Brady?
I have seen it, yeah.
Oh.
It's good. I'm just struggling to remember. I don't want to give a spoiler away, but go watch it. It's good.
No spoiler.
Netflix need a plug for the most watched show in history.
Yeah.
Anyway, you probably heard someone else talking there, and joining Josh and I is Stephen Chicken, a man who is sure to have a roaring great time on this episode. Look at him waving. How are you, Stephen?
Yeah, I'm great.
Oh, love it.
Lovely.
As you know, well, fun fact for you, last name's Frost. Always got told, are you having
Of course.
today?
Of course. Yeah. Wow.
Children. But Steve, you spoke to Mr. Corbrand over the international break. How is he?
Yeah, it's all right, thanks. No, it was good. We normally only sort of get to talk to Carlos in the context of press conferences, and because they're all over Zoom now, even sort of post-match usually, it's over Zoom. We've done sort of like 5 or 10 on away trips that have been in person, but I've met Carlos in person like 5 times. So when you're at a press conference, I know you've been to one, Brady, a particularly memorable one with Danny Cowley, but you do get to chat a little bit more before and after the presser usually, and we've not had that with Carlos, so I think it was good to see sort of a different side of him and get him in a little bit of a, not to say he was I'd say in a bit of a less professional mode. That sounds like he was ripping his shirt off and running around the room or something, but you know what I mean, a little bit more of a relaxed setting is the way of putting it. Yeah, it was good. It's on the club YouTube. He searched for that.
Oh, lovely. Well, that's it's enough for niceties, because you and me are going to go to head to head, Stephen, because it's time for Josh's game. It's Guess the 11 this week, isn't it, Josh?
Ooh.
Definitely, yeah. So, a bit of a self-indulgent one, to be honest. So, many years ago, I was mascot for town. My one and only game was against Hull City at home.
You've started with many years ago, and already I'm bricking it. So, thank you for that.
Well, yeah, I did think that, but there's quite a few, easy guessable ones. So it was November 2003. Now I know that's going back quite some time, but there are some, there's some people still connected with the club. Some people, I'm not going to give any away actually. No. So we're going to do the auction style. We'll start with you, Brady. How many do you think you could name in 30 seconds from that 11?
I'm really bad with stuff like this, and when Hardtrick was on here, I went too high, and so I'm going to go 3.
That's fine. That's fine. Steve, could you go for 4?
No.
No. All right, Brady. So actually, Tam won the game 3-1. I should have pointed that out. Okay. I think you can do this, mate. So you've got 30 seconds to name 3 players from the 11, starting from now.
Number 1 is Andy Booth, right?
Yes, correct.
2003. Phil Senior.
Yep. He was in goal, obviously.
Murphin. Is that right?
Nope.
Oh God, 2003. Sodji, Effie Sodji.
No, he was injured.
Oh, Pete Clark.
Who?
Pete Clark, Nathan Clark.
No, Nathan Clark. Yeah, just got
Okay.
it. Just got it, mate. You could have had John Stead, Danny Schofield, John Worthington, Paul Scott, Ian Hughes, Tony Cars, Anthony Lloyd, or Nat Brown. But who cares? You did it. It was a low target, but you hit it. So fair play to you.
If I had to guess the goal scorers, I think I would probably say it was John Stead, Andy Booth, and Danny Schofield. But
Correct.
that's just a guess.
That's correct, mate.
Yeah.
Well done. How did you get that?
Just pulled it off the top of my head.
I think I feel like I should explain for people who won't be watching this on YouTube, but let's just say it came to Stephen magically.
Yeah, there's suddenly a bit of a gap in my Rothmans collection up there, weirdly.
Well, we shall move on, gents. I think that's the first win. Sorry, I think that's the first win I've got.
Hollow victory, mate.
Well, I beat the Yorkshire Lives Huddersfield Town writer at Huddersfield Town.
It's true.
And they can never take that away from you.
Yeah.
No, they can't. It's true. Congrats.
Anyway, we'll stop, reveling in my victory. We'll talk about Hull, because that's who we're playing this weekend. So they sit 21st in the league after 11 matches, still early days, but they only have 9 points. Won 2, drawn 3, and lost 6. But one of those victories came last time out. It was a 2-0 win against Middlesbrough before the international break. And a bit of an interesting one, because I think it's fair to say Middlesbrough dominated the game in terms of shots and kind of XG, and Hull were really quite lucky in own goal. Hull weren't unlucky. Hull were a bit lucky. There was an own goal in there as well. So they've not had the best start. They played a couple of formations this season, but mostly seem to line up in a 4-2-3-1. I was just having a quick look at the stats, because I know Steve likes his stats as well. Interestingly, so far this season, Hull have conceded more goals in the second half of matches, with a third of them coming between the 60th minute and 75th minute mark, which is interesting, because obviously we've seen Town put in some good second half performances. So, Steve, I'll come to you first. How do you think Huddersfield should approach this game against Hull City?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of these games where Carlos Corberán has been pretty much doing that all season, other than sort of the first few games of the campaign where he had sort of injuries and COVID absences. He's stuck with the 3-4-3 since the Everton game. So that's, the last 8 games in a row, they've stuck with that system. Although Luton, it actually turned into more of a 4-3-3 in attack. But I think Town are in a position now where they can and I think Corberán is this is what he is determined to do. And we sort of questioned whether it was the right decision after Forest and Swansea, but I think he is quite determined to just be like, we're going to concentrate on our strengths more than the opposition strengths and do what we want to do. So I think it's sort of stay the course. I think it's an interesting question though around whether he's going to rotate the players that have been on international duty out of the squad, as he did after the last international break, because we came back against Stoke and he left out Levi Colwill and Danel Sinani, who are starting pretty much every other game other than that. So obviously we've got, Colwill has been around, but Sinani's been away, Scott Hye's been away, and probably most crucially, Sorba Thomas has been away with Wales. So that does pose some interesting questions, but I think it is very much keep doing what you've been doing, lads, for this one.
I think you're right, but obviously Hull have some interesting players. Who did you pick, Josh, as kind of your key player from Hull side?
I've gone for Keane Lewis Potter, 20-year-old. He's getting all the admirers in the Championship at the moment. Normally plays on the left, likes to cut in, good dribbler. He got a good shot on him. He can finish. So yeah, he's the one for me. That it's the obvious one, but he's the main threat from Hull. I think that their fans are starting to think that he might go in the near future. He's got a lot of admirers from higher teams in Championship and Premier League, in fact. So yeah, Keane Lewis Potter for me is the one that we've got to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and I know we don't talk about this, but I think his name just makes him sound like he's a lovely lad. You don't think Keane Lewis Potter sounds like a bit of a rotten egg, do you? So
very middle class, I think, is that name. Like it starts, I don't know. It starts. I think Keane sounds like a teenage son of like someone who was like super into UK indie in like the mid noughties, but then Lewis Potter is like super white bread, middle class name, isn't it?
Keane's an Irish name, isn't it? But I don't think he might have Irish connections. I don't know.
Look at this insight. That's why you listen to the warm up. Anyway, Steve, who have you picked as a key player for Hull?
I also had Keane Lewis Potter, so should I pick someone else?
You can talk a little bit more about why you like him. We're flexible on this, podcast.
I've heard that about you. Yeah, I mean, I've asked our correspondent at the Hull Daily Mail, Barry Cooper, Baz, for his insight, and asked him who's the danger man, and he said Keane Lewis Potter. I think it's obvious when you look at the stats that he is. He's got 2 goals, 2 assists. No one else has got to either. No one's got above 1 on either score for Hull because they've struggled for goals this season. He takes the most shots per game. He's up there for key passes per game as well. He's one of their top dribblers. I think he is as important to them this season as Josh Koroma was to Huddersfield Town last season. It's a similar kind of thing going on. He's only 20 years old. He's a local lad. The fans love him. He's the obvious one, and it's not to say that Hull don't have other threats. Looking at the stats, Greg Doherty comes out quite well for his key passes and his dribbles. So obviously coming through the middle, he's one to look out for. But it's hard to look past Lewis Potter, to be honest.
No, I think that's a good point. Surprised neither of you picked Malik Wilkes, who obviously had a good season in League One last season.
Yeah. Was it 22 goals he had last year? But he's not really hit form this year, is the thing. Like, he's only had 1 goal in 7 appearances. Yeah. And I think it might be a similar thing to Town, where they're struggling to create chances for the striker this year. He's obviously struggled with that.
Yeah, he was my first name that sprung to mind when I was thinking of someone for this. But as you say, I've had a look at his form this season. He didn't start last game, but he did come on and get his first goal of the season. So he's not guaranteed to start. He might start, but we'll see.
We will see. Well, my key player was actually the goalkeeper, Matt Ingram. I think he's, we following Town or covering Town for the last couple of seasons. When your target is to kind of just remain in the division, how important the goalkeeper can be, and I think he's made some good saves. Obviously they're still down there, but I think particularly for this game, we've seen Town can get a few goals at home. Obviously, think of Blackburn and Reading. Maybe we'll just ignore Forest, but I expect him to be a bit of a busy boy if Town do set out to be attacking on the front foot. I think he could have a busy afternoon. But we are a Town podcast, so I'll do reverse order, Steve. Who have you picked as a key player for Huddersfield?
I think it's interesting. It's going back to what Carlos said last week, which was it's hard to pick out a star because they've got the team is the star this year. But I think there's a little bit of Sorba Thomas erasure in that comment, to be honest. But as I say, we're not entirely sure if he's going to play at time of recording or if he's going to start, I should say. So I'm gonna, and people are going to be sick of me going on about him, but I am gonna name check Danny Ward, just because at home in particular, I think he's quite an important player and probably a bit more important than he always gets credit for. He has scored 3 in the last 3 home games. And I think when things go badly for Town in attack, he tends to get the blame for it, which I think is probably true of every striker. You only need to look at the pelters that Harry Kane was getting for England after the Hungary game when the whole team had been poor, but everyone's like, Harry Kane was especially dreadful. I think there's a bit of that for every striker. But we have seen good stuff out of him in the link-up, in particular against Reading and against Blackburn, where he also got 2 goals. And you would hope that after that Blackburn performance, he would take confidence from that and and build on that. And I think Town do need a striker to sort of, a centre forward to step up and be reliable, because I think other than sort of that run that Steve Mounier had over sort of Christmas, January 2019-20, they've not really had a centre forward that they can consistently rely on to offer goals and an attacking threat. So I think Danny Ward will be especially champing at the bit to show that the last home game, the 2 against Blackburn, wasn't a fluke. He's also got a decent record against Hull over the last couple of years. He scored twice off the bench against Hull for Cardiff when Hull were last in the Championship. One of them was Hull had just scored what they thought was a last-minute winner, and then he popped up with an equaliser. And the other one was on the final day when Cardiff got into the playoffs and Hull got relegated. So he does have a bit of a track record for annoying Hull City. So I'll go with Danny Ward.
Yeah, and I hope it continues for Saturday. Steve, I am, because obviously we're very lucky to have you on this podcast. So I was just going to ask, this is more of a question. Mipo, obviously he's coming. I know he's a young lad, and I think you're right in picking Danny Ward as a key player, because when you look at the strikers, there's not really, Fraser Campbell hasn't scored yet. Mipo's still young, but do you think Mipo should be kind of getting some more minutes? Because I know it's tricky with youngsters, and loan spells aren't always an Emile Smith Rowe where they hit the ground running. It can be a lot of development, but do you think we're going to see a bit more from Mipo?
I think it's hard to say, to be honest. I think we've sort of, when we've looked at it before, Carlos has tended to pick one of Ward and Mipo and Fraser Campbell. So, and there's been one game where he had all three of them in the squad. But other than that, it's tended to be, Ward and Mipo have been interchangeable, and Campbell has been the other striker, because I think sort of Campbell is more of a defensive number 9. He's pressing from the front and he's there to, you pick Fraser Campbell if you want a huge effort off the ball above necessarily a threat on the ball. Whereas I think Ward is probably the happy medium between the two, and Mipo is probably at the attacking end from what we've seen of him. And I think he's been a little bit unlucky that, like, when you look at who he's picked for which games, if you imagine that they might have planned to play Mipo in certain games, in give each striker a turn, his turn has always come just after Danny Ward's had a good game. And it's like, so after Blackburn or after Blackpool, where, he wasn't stellar, Danny Ward, but, they'd won 3-0. So it's like, well, you don't change that team. So I think Mipo has been a little bit unlucky in timing, but Carlos has also, he has left him out the squad as well. And Carlos has said that, the players that aren't getting minutes, it's because they need to raise the level of their game, basically. So I think it's quite difficult for us to say without seeing what's going on in the training ground. We don't know what the expectations were when he came in. Were they expecting to put him in straight into the starting lineup? I don't think so. And they do have that break clause in January, which, they made clear in the press release that break clause is there, and, either West Ham can call him back or they can send him back. So I think he was, when you bring in an 18-year-old, unless it is a Smith Rowe or a Colwill, it's always a bit of a punt. At the moment, it seems like it's not working out, but there's still plenty of time. We're still only in the middle of October, so he's still got, 3 months, really 2.5, 3 months to show that he's worthy of a place in the first team.
Yeah, and we know what it's like in the Championship when it gets up to Christmas. I mean, obviously we've got the Birmingham game after this.
People keep saying this though, but actually the schedule this Christmas isn't that bad, because I think New Year's Day happens to fall on a Saturday, I think, or something like that. So the actual, I think there's only actually one midweek game in all of December, weirdly, this year. So yeah.
Well, come for the striker chat, stay for the calendar updates. There you go. Josh, who have you picked as a key man for Huddersfield in this match?
Very boring, I'm afraid, but Lewis O'Brien.
Oh, shock!
I was nearly going to go for Lewis as well. So.
It's simple, isn't it? If he plays well, our chance of winning increases more than any other player playing well, in my opinion. Yeah. But simple as that. I'm not going to bore you with any of the finer detail.
He's their best player, isn't he? So it's going to be, isn't it?
Yeah. I was thinking of going clever and thinking, well, maybe Pearson or Lees to keep Lewis Potter quiet, but nah, I think O'Brien, easy.
You just love gingers, mate. That's what it is. Do this podcast.
Well, I'm quite selective,
but Turton could be key. To be fair,
Josh doesn't like Turton.
No. I know he's not popular with every fan. I think he's there. He's limited. He's there for a certain job, but especially if they do rotate Sorba Thomas out. And again, this is sort of speculation. It's just based on what Carlos did in the last international break. But you would assume that Turton would probably be the one to come in. And I think especially when you've got a player like Keane Lewis Potter in the side, maybe you do want a more defensive wing back if you stick him with the 3-4-3. So then it's down to him and Pearson to shore that gap up. We'll see.
My issue with Turton is he a good enough defender to just say, oh, he's solid, he comes in and defends?
Yeah.
Is he a good enough defender to just be that description?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think he's probably a better defender than Sorba Thomas.
Oh yeah,
he's more defensive minded. But I know what you mean. He's not a Harry Toffolo who is sort of excellent at both kind of thing. You know, he is a bit more limited. I think he was brought in as backup. But you know, he's had his moments. I don't think he's been as bad as some people make out. He had that stinker against Forest, obviously, where he made quite an obvious blunder. But then he also came on against Blackburn and put in that cross that led to the winner. So yeah,
he has got better.
Yeah. And he's better. Think of it, last season Dehaney was the backup, so I think he's done an improvement on Dehaney.
Dehaney started for Stoke of the week.
Well, Matt doesn't like Dehaney. I
don't. I'm saying it's quite surprising to see him starting for Stoke.
Well, they've got quite a few ex-Town right backs, Tommy Smith, obviously, as well.
There's two. Has he got any more?
I was about to
just the two. There's been a lot of talk about Sorba Thomas talking about key players and just then, and I've actually gone for Koroma. And the reason I picked him is, obviously, as you wrote earlier, Stephen, like, we don't know if he'll be rested for this match, Sorba Thomas. So I think it might put a bit more pressure on Koroma to get involved. He's not hit the heights of last season, but in fairness to him, and I think you mentioned this as well, he's still a young lad, and he did kind of come out of nowhere last season because the expectations on him weren't to have as good a season as he did. And we're still early into the season, really, when you think about it. So and he has popped up with some goals. So this is more kind of I hope it wills into existence and he does become a bit of a key player. But I think you've talked about it, Steve. Like he has been doubled up on this season, given how well he did last season.
Yeah, he's finding it more difficult to work those sort of shooting chances, and I think he's looked a bit desperate at times, because there is that big onus on him to be the one who produces the shots and comes up with the goals, and I think there's been times this year where he looks like he needs to relax into games a little bit more, and probably needs to feel that burden is lifted off him a little bit, but. Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to see him get, obviously we've got this run of games between this break and the next break, and it'd be nice to see Josh Koroma get a couple of goals in that run.
Yeah, and I think this could be a good game for him because, Hull aren't the best defensively. I'm not, like you say, hoping, they're on -7 goal difference, so.
Second half at Luton, he was excellent.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and he would have got that goal if Sinani's pass got through to him.
Yeah.
I'm certain that would have been 1-0 to Town at that point. So, yeah, he's still a dangerous player, and people forget he actually had a bit of a slow start last season as well. It took him a while it was Swansea before he got that first goal. So we were a month into the season at that point, and a month last season was more games than a month would be now. So he did take a little while to get going, and then once he hit his form, he was in form. So hopefully we're just around the corner with that for Josh Koroma.
We will see. Anyway, we've talked a lot about Town. It's now time to hear the whole City fan perspective. So I caught up with Joel from the Holland Back podcast ahead of the game. Love that title. I think that's pretty good, to be fair. And here's what he had to say.
We're sorry, your call cannot be
Hello,
taken as
no
dialed.
one is available to
Press the
take your
number
call.
and dial again.
Please leave a message after
Record
the tone.
So the first game of the season, we went to Preston and won 4-1, and our fans immediately thought, wow, like, are we taking our momentum back into the Championship after our promotion? And then we went into a 9-game winless run where we didn't score for 7 games, which a lot of those games we played okay, nothing special. We didn't look like we were going to get any wins, but we did see an improvement in our last game against Middlesbrough, but that's due to a change in system where we looked a little bit more solid. It's whether we're going to keep that going for if we're going to keep improving, or if we're just going to go back to our old formation where we will just struggle again, and that's when the manager will lose his job probably. But did I expect it? Did I expect the start of the season? I expected us to be around where we are right now, just above the relegation zone, but I didn't expect the way we've played this season, where we've struggled to score, considering we finished in League One. I can't remember if we were the top scorers or second top scorers, and our front three looked like they could score 4, 5, 6 a game between them, but they've come up this year. I think Lewis Potter scored 2, Wilkes has got 1, and I don't think McGuinness has got 1 as well. So there's only 4 between them in the first 10 games, but 11 games, sorry. But yeah, I didn't expect us to be as bad as we are so far in terms of performances, but I did expect us to be where we are in the table. Right, Grant McCann. He's a very hot topic around our fan base at the moment. A lot of us do want him to go. Despite getting the win against Middlesbrough last match, we're still not convinced that he's the right man for the job. But at the start of the season, half of us were saying keep him in the job, let him have a chance, give him 10 to 15 games, including me. And half were saying that no, even though he's got us up, he's still not good enough to be our manager. But yeah, so the win against Middlesbrough is something to build on, which we're looking to build on, obviously, against yourselves. McCann no doubt saved his job against Middlesbrough. I think if we'd have lost that game, he'd have lost his job. We'd have come into this game with a new manager. But if we use our new system that we played against Middlesbrough, I think it was a 3-5-2, then I think we'll be a lot more solid, a lot more threatening against Huddersfield. But yeah, in terms of McCann, if he can get an improvement in results, then obviously Hull fans will be happy for him to stay. But it's the results that matter, and we're not getting them results at the moment. 2 wins out of the first 11 games isn't what we want or what we need to stay in the division. In all honesty, I'm not 100% sure what to expect from us. We started a 3-5-2 against Middlesbrough. That was the first time we've done that this season, and we looked threatening. We looked like we'd found something that would be more secure for us in this league, because the 4-3-3 wasn't working. But with the contention of George Honeyman, Tom Huddleston, Louis Coyle, Callum Elder coming back into the side, I'm not sure whether we'll stick with a 3-5-2 that got us the win before the international break. But I'd like to see us play 3-5-2, but I'm expecting us to play a 4-3-3, which will cause us to struggle. We'll play from the back. We do try and do that. We try and emulate the Premier League teams, the top sides, by playing out from the back, trying to play exciting football, but we haven't got the quality to play this exciting, expansive football that these teams like Liverpool and Manchester City play. So I think if Huddersfield press us, they'll win the ball high up the pitch, especially from probably the likes of Jacob Greaves, who don't seem too comfortable playing from the back. So, like I say, if Town press us, then that's where I think if they're going to score, that's where they'll get the goals. So, yeah, like I say, I'm hoping we play 3-5-2 with Tom Eaves and Tyler Smith up top, Lewis Potter back at wing back, and it just looked like it was more balanced compared to what we're used to. But I'm expecting McCann to go back to his 4-3-3, unfortunately for us. Be a big positive for yourselves, because if we do go back to a 4-3-3, I don't see anything but a Huddersfield win. So in terms of whole players to look out for, there's two that stick in my mind right now. It's Deschamps Bernard and Matt Ingram. In terms of Deschamps Bernard, he's a 21-year-old centre-back from Manchester United. We've got him on loan for the season. He's only played a handful of games at this level, and it seems like he's been at the level for years. He's just slotted in like it's easy work, really. But he's calm, he's composed, he isn't afraid to go in for a tackle. And like I said, in terms of Greaves struggling to play out from the back, Bernard looks a lot more comfortable on the ball. And he looks like when he plays at the back, we're a lot more defensively solid compared to if we play Jones and Greaves in a back four. So Deschamps Bernard definitely want to look out for. And Matt Ingram has been really good for us this season in goal. He's saved us from embarrassment quite a few times in games, and he's also saved us a couple of points as well, namely against Bournemouth and Swansea, where we got 0-0 draws. He was pulling saves off that you wouldn't really expect him to pull off when he was at QPR, or even when he was in League One with us last year. So I think if we're going to get anything from the game, Matt Ingram's going to have to be on top form again, and I trust that he will be, to be fair. Yeah, we're bringing quite a few fans, to be fair, compared to our recent attendances, so I'm looking forward to it myself. But in terms of the fan base, I think we're a little bit worried about how Grant McCann will set up, because he's renowned for setting up wrong, really, in this league. So we kind of believe that we're not going to get anything from the game. We're all hopeful, but on the most part, we don't think we're going to get anything from this. I'm expecting Town to beat us, to be fair. It's negative on my part, but the way we're playing this season, we don't seem to be picking results. So we got the win against Middlesbrough, and we had another win 10 games before that. So is it going to be another 10 games before our next win? That's my thoughts on it at the moment. I think under the current manager, we go to Huddersfield, we lose the game. Just how I think it'll be, to be fair. Yeah, for me, I think the game will go in Town's favour. Probably going to be about 3-1, I'm going to say. With Town getting the 3, with us getting a late consolation goal. I'm hoping I'm wrong, obviously, but that's how I see the game going.
Okay, so we've heard from Joel there. Steve, that's movie magic. Anyway, we've heard from Joel, and now Josh is going to get all Peter Kay on us and take us back in time.
A backpack full of memories.
I'm not going too far back in time, because obviously I've exposed your knowledge of 2003. So we're going to 2019. Town 3, Hull 0. And it was the first time Town recorded back-to-back wins for like 18 months, something like that. Goal scorers Grant, Bakuna and Kachunga. And the reason I picked this out is I remember walking away from that game thinking, we're onto something good here with the Cowleys. Even Diakabi got an assist and looked mildly threatening. And everyone was like, oh, we're going to make a footballer out of him yet. You know, we're going to go on a roll. And there was quite a positive vibe after that game. And then that carried on for a little bit. And then obviously we tailed off and ended up just about staying up. But yeah, just it was interesting because after that game, it felt like we'd found the right management duo and things were looking bright, and but it didn't pan out that way. So yeah, just remember if you guys remember having a similar feeling after that.
Yeah, game. Well, that was very early into their run. They'd only been at the club for about 3 weeks, and I think, Town fans will remember it very well, but just how low everything was at that point, and that turned into a bit of a run for the Cowleys there. Was it 7 games they went unbeaten, including the win over Brentford, and it really did feel like the turning of a corner, that game, and that run was really what kept them up in the end. And to get a 3-0 now would feel significant. So to get a 3-0 then, when things had been so bad for so long, and it had been coming. They'd had a couple of positive results and a couple of unlucky results before then, but it really was huge. That.
Yeah, I was at the game. I think my girlfriend came with me. I'd kind of catfished her before, because the first 2 matches we watched were Liverpool 4, Barcelona 0, and then the Tottenham Ajax game. And then I took her to Town v Reading that season. 2-0 loss. We were terrible, but she came along to this. I remember what was really positive about that was I thought the goals were actually like quite good goals as well. I think the Grant one, because he got it fizzed in by Bakuna, and that was the point when Bakuna was a bit of a super sub.
It literally just come on, hadn't he? It was like within 30, I think it was his first touch. He put it on a plate for Grant.
Yeah, and then obviously he finished as well. And like you say, Diakabi looked threatening, and there was
a little period where Bakuna and Diakabi actually had a really good link up.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Which is strange to say now, but they had a little bit. There was a time in the 1919-20 season where those two had been involved in more goals. Like that was the pair that had been involved in the most goals out of anyone, which is bizarre.
The goal at Stoke, was that Diakabi assist?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember because he had, like, I think with Broke and Diakabi had, like, because obviously the one thing you can say about him is he was quick and he had the space, like, and it was just 1-on-1, and I think he had like 40 yards, and I just remember a guy near me being like, "You can run, just run for your life," like, weird fan chat, but it was a good game, that, because let's be honest, that season wasn't great, so well done for bringing it up, Josh. But we are keeping with the theme of time. We are going to go back in time and pick one of our favourite players, because it's time for Return to the Mac.
Christopher Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend.
Dupuis got the better. Yes! And Laurent Dupuis has scored! What a goal, Aaron Moy! An absolute thunderbolt delivered all the way from Australia.
Return to the Mac.
So, Steve, who have you picked for this week's Return to the Mac?
Yeah, I've gone for a choice that's definitely going to lose the poll. Don't get me wrong, but it's a bit of a sentimental one. I've gone for Kamil Grabara, the goalkeeper, who people forget that 3-0 win at the John Smith Stadium was actually quite an even game for a long time, and Grabara was quite important to help keep them in it and made some good stops. Hull had more shots than Town in that game, and Grabara was hugely important in keeping them in it. But it's also, to be honest, I've mostly picked him just because it was away to Hull that he picked up that head injury that ended his time at Town. Effectively, he didn't play for them again after that because they had to go and get Jonas Lörsel. It was right towards the end of the January window, wasn't it? And they had to go and get Jonas Lörsel in from Everton. And Lörsel was brilliant, don't get me wrong. He was, really key in helping Town stay up that season, particularly think of his performance away to Sheffield Wednesday after lockdown. But I think it was a bit of a shame for Grabara that because I thought he was all right for Town. I don't think he was brilliant, but I think he was, I think he was fine. And, it's a bit of a shame that was how it ended for him, really. So it'd be nice for him to come back and get one more game if we're doing genie players. No slight against Lee Nichols at all. It would just be a nice little symbolic thing.
I like it. Yeah, I agree. Don't think he was as bad as some people made out. Like I say, I didn't think he was amazing, but
he was fine, wasn't he?
Yeah. I like that. Josh, I'll just nip in quickly with mine because I'm also not going to win the poll, so it'll be interesting to see what you pick. But I was thinking, just because if Sorb Thomas doesn't play, I was going to pick a kind of right back who can play right wing back, and I was going to go for Eric Dern because he's doing all right at Frankfurt, and I don't think he was terrible for Huddersfield, but he could also put in a bit of a good cross now and again. And yeah, I think he's a bit of an upgrade on Turton. So Eric Durham, quite versatile as well, could play over wing.
World Cup winner.
Exactly, yeah. Just get a World Cup win in the team. But yeah, I know some Town fans didn't like him after he did he complain about cheese, not being able to get good cheese in Huddersfield or something?
Was it bread?
Bread, that was it.
Bread.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which has come up before. Apparently Germans don't know where to go to. I think Schindler complained about it, didn't he, recently as well? Anyway, I don't know what it is. There's obviously like a bakery culture in Germany that isn't replicated over here in some way. Don't know. Well,
if we, that seems like there's a gap in the market. If we sign any more German players, need a good bakery. So yeah, he'll see. Maybe we should set one up, but that's another podcast. Josh, who are you picking as your player?
That's someone who also had a complaint. I think it was maybe about the food at training or something like that, or the shared training ground with the bowlers or something. Lauren de Poitre. So basically, running out of strikers to pick from in this segment. I've gone through pretty much everyone that I sort of liked, and I did like de Poitre as well. Thought he got quite a lot of stick. Was probably unwarranted. Second season, everyone was awful. I know he seemed to like down tools a bit, but if you think back to his first season with us in the Prem, not many Town players have scored against Man United. He had a good goal scoring record in the first half of the season. Tailed off all right in the second half, and then, as I said, pretty disastrous second season. But his first few months with us, I thought he was, turned Harry Maguire for that goal against Leicester. He was a big unit, knew where the goal was. So for me, de Poitre wasn't that bad, and I'm running out of strikers, so that's my pick.
Nice. Yeah, it was the toilets he complained about, because I know Matt always bangs on about that.
Okay, the toilets.
But I liked him. I remember when I picked him when Chris Markham did the podcast with us, I got absolute pelters for it from both of them. But he could score a header, and
it can't have been that bad, can he? He got like 9 goals.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
Everyone raves about Mounier, but
Well,
I thought he was a better player than Mounier personally, but I know a lot of people don't agree.
Yeah, well, it's that classic. People liked him, de Poitre, because he worked hard. But just because I think that's a good thing. That's the bare minimum. Anyway, we'll move on to You're the Boss. So, Steve, how are you going to line up Huddersfield for this game? So this is not how you think Corberán will line up. You're in charge. You're in the dugout. Would you wear your chinos? I know you've got the same chinos.
I do have some chinos, yeah. Yeah, why not? Okay, Nichols, Pearson, Lees, Colwill. I would pick Sorba Thomas, to be honest. Midfield is difficult. But Hogg and O'Brien, I think Vallejo's not necessarily going to be fit, is he? Toffolo. Do you know what? It's just the best 11, isn't it? Sinani, Ward, and Koroma. There you go.
Yeah. That's basically my team as well. I think the interesting ones for the actual team selection will be about Sinani, because obviously he's played over the break, and Thomas, like I say. But I think that is the best team. Which we've not really been able to say about Town for a while what we think the best team is, but I'm with you on that. Josh, have you got any differences to that? Any surprises?
Nope, same for me. Although I'd say only one thing. And it's best 11 at the moment, but if Pippa was available, then I'd probably play him and put Thomas on one of the wings.
It's interesting. I think he's always been better at wing back this season. They have tried him on the wing a few times. He's just never quite been as good. I think that's an interesting, for when Pippa is back, it's an interesting challenge for Sorba Thomas is try and get in one of those wing slots, because I don't know if they like having Sinani as that 10, and Koroma is obviously Koroma. I think it almost comes down at that point to a straight shootout between Thomas and Koroma for a place on that left wing, rather than moving Sinani off the right. It's interesting.
Maybe, yeah. I just think personally you've got to play Pippa.
Yeah, but, I agree.
Got to find a place for him, but
yeah.
Maybe the games that he's played on the wing, Thomas, is just not worked out. Maybe if it's on the wing against another team, it might have. Maybe it was.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. It'll be a nice problem to have.
Yeah, you got the classic cliche in. Anyway, I think this has had a couple of connection issues, so I'll just close, guys, with your match prediction. What's the score? Are you predicting, Steve? What about you?
2-0 to Town. I think they should be. This is one of those games where if they don't win it, then it's not a good result, really. So I'm not expecting Hull to make it an easy game, but really at this point, Town should have enough quality to see them off.
Yeah. If you had to guess goal scorers, who are you going for?
Let's pick Sinani and Ward. Why not?
Oh, nice. It sounds like I'm copying you, but I did put 2-0 win. I think again should be winning this game.
Did you put Ward and Sinani?
I put Karoma because I picked him as my key player, and I put Tom Lees as
interesting
set piece. If Thomas plays, I think he probably will. To be fair, and might be rested for Birmingham. Josh, you?
Well, first of all, the guests are actually winning the match predictions so far.
Oh yeah.
Whatever Steve says is probably going to happen. Hull haven't conceded that many goals this season, so I'm going to go 1-0 Town. I think we'll break them down late on, hopefully. 1-0, and I think it'll be we'll go Karoma, as I do every week.
That's good. So we've all predicted wins. We'll see how it pans out. Probably be a loss now. We're all feeling confident. But just before we go, I want to say good luck to everyone who's doing the Worthington Walk.
Yes, yeah.
This weekend. So James, who's a regular on this pod, he's doing that. I've helped him with his prep for some of the walking. So energy gels. If anyone listens to this before they do the walk, that's key. And energy gels. But yeah, good luck to everyone taking part. And thanks to Steve and Josh for joining me. And we'll be back to preview the next game.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, and they're the pride of the town. And the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.